6 years after the tragedy at Sandy Hook, a mother finds hope through hurt.
He knows my disappointment and my heartache, and that's okay, because God's bigger than that.
Plus, a new age blocker who believes he is God.
I wanted to be my own guide, and I didn't want to have to play by somebody else's rules.
Find out how an out-of-body experience changes everything on today's 700 Club Interactive. Well, welcome to the show. Here's Efrem Graham with this week's Top 5 from Studio 5.
At number 5.
Our next guest has been compared to everyone from Adele to Amy Winehouse. Her new CD just debuted at number 1. She's amazing. Here to perform Still Rolling Stones. Please welcome Lauren Daigle.
Lauren Daigle's new project brings her to the Ellen stage.
6 feet under, I thought it was over, an answer to prayer.
But this isn't a first-time meeting for Lauren and the talk show host.
Long time ago, I was a judge on American Idol, and she was on the tiny season that I was on American Idol. And look at her now, because of me. Thank you so much.
At number 4.
You already put the order in? Good to see you. See what kind of food we got. All burgers,
Pretty fried.
We told you Golden State Warrior Steph Curry and his business partners in Unanimous Media are teaming up with Hollywood's Devon Franklin to produce the film Breakthrough, starring Chrissy Metz, Marcel Ruiz, and Topher Grace.
Topher plays me, Topher Grace, and he does such an excellent job.
This week, we're learning more from Pastor Jason Noble, who's portrayed in the film as a witness to the true story of a 14-year-old boy who falls through the ice, drowns, and is prayed back to life.
Just last week, Steph Curry signs on as an executive producer.
Yes.
Your thoughts on that unfolding?
Man, well, we've had to keep it quiet. We've known for about 3 or 4 months, and it's been hard to keep it quiet. A couple of interviews I almost slipped and like said it, and so, but we're so excited. He read the script, loves it, loves Devon, loves the story, and you just see God putting the puzzle pieces together in such a powerful way to make his name famous.
Breakthrough is in American theaters Easter week, April 17th, 2019. At number 3. Fresh from their royal wedding performance, those are the voices of London's Kingdom Choir and their new album. The choir's social media is filled with images celebrating the completion and release of the project, aptly titled Stand By Me, the song that grabbed the world's attention at their royal wedding performance.
No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me.
At number 2.
I set up a wild turkey there in Houston, Texas on National First Responders Day.
That's actor Matthew McConaughey.
Turkey in here.
Celebrating National First Responders Day this week and delivering lunch to emergency workers in Texas.
This year we said, well, look, let me get you down here to my home state, and what's a good place to go? And we came with this, hey, first responders. You know, Harvey just hit last August here. So much of Houston was underwater. These people rescued, first responders here rescued over 123,000 people. 40,000 people had to move out of their homes and go to shelters. And so we're going around today, delivering a turkey and a little bourbon and a little gratitude to the men and women that responded first when that disaster hit.
At number 1.
Pete and Ellie took in 3 children 10 days ago.
Just in time for November's National Adoption Month, Mark Wahlberg stars in a comedy based on the real-life story of a couple who adopts 3 children.
The county puts these on because they can match a lot of kids and parents quickly.
Look at the big kids.
Everybody's avoiding them. I'm gonna go and say hi.
But they're teenagers, okay? They use drugs and they watch people playing video games on YouTube. We're not equipped for any of that.
Hi! Just FYI, we can all hear you.
It's called Instant Family, and it's loaded with laughs and heart.
What do you think this film says about the whole idea and concept of family?
Family and faith are the most important things. And, you know,
what a family looks like today could be anything. And that's an important message to get out there. And when families are being pulled apart, it's so important to encourage people, to bring people in, to be inclusive.
Yeah.
And you know, we should all, if everybody's faith and focus was on the same things, we'd be living in a much different world right now.
Instant Family is in American theaters November 16th.
For all the latest in entertainment news, just check out Efrem's weekly show. It's called Studio 5. You can watch it online at cbn.com/Studio 5. Well, up next, a Sandy Hook mom tries to make sense of her daughter's death.
There was so much sadness, so much weight, so much pain. The quiet that ensued after Catherine died was just painful. What I wouldn't give for one more day. But I don't want to take heaven away from her. I don't.
Watch how she's carrying on her daughter's legacy right after this. Next month marks 6 years since the tragedy at Sandy Hook. On the final day of Catherine Hubbard's life, she kissed the palm of her mother's hand and pulled it towards her heart. Catherine then boarded the school bus for the very last time. Her mom, Jenny, remembers thinking at that moment that her radiant 6-year-old daughter was doing great. But in just a few hours, Catherine was dead, a victim of one of the deadliest school shootings in American history.
911, what's the location of the emergency?
I think there's somebody shooting in here in Sandy Hook School.
I prayed, keep them safe, bring them home.
Do you see anything or hear anything more?
I keep hearing shooting, I keep hearing popping.
I saw Freddie, and Freddie said, I can't find Catherine, I can't find Catherine.
Get the sergeant, get everybody you can going down there.
I stood there as the children's names were called and the parents took them from the line, and then you looked along the back wall of the firehouse and you saw the parents whose children did not respond here.
Freddie and I were sitting there, and he had his head on my shoulder, and I just remember the weight of his head of, like, wow. I knew in my gut that Catherine had died.
The grieving town of Newtown, Connecticut holds the first funerals today for victims of the school shooting that left 20 children and 6 adults dead.
20-year-old Adam Lanza carried out the deadly rampage before taking his own life.
There are many questions. What if the shooter had no access to the guns?
Others say the real problem is our mental health system.
This never should have happened. How could this happen?
There is evil. There's an abundance of evil in the world, and we have to confront it.
I miss her laugh. I miss her bear hugs. She would crawl into bed early in the morning, and I miss rolling over and seeing her face. There's mornings that I roll over and think, oh, you're still here. Animals were just her passion, tried and true. Whether they were furry or slimy, she loved them all. She'd be in the garden, and she'd be among the butterflies that would sort of swoop in, and she would get a butterfly on her hand, and she would whisper to them, tell all your friends that I'm kind.
This question just kept being thrown to me. Is this making you lose your faith in God? Because how do you explain this? You know, how do you explain a senseless act like this?
How do we go on? How do we go on? There was so much sadness, so much weight, so much pain. The quiet that ensued after Catherine died was just painful.
I knew I had to do something in this church. I came back here, it was 2 hours before the service, and the church was already filled. And people were just forming their own prayer circles. Some were just singing Christmas carols. It was very clear to all of us that light is not going to be overcome by darkness.
The getting used to the new normal, it was hard. We would start to talk about Catherine, and then someone would go, I can't do this. We each had those moments. But in getting through that, it drew us closer together. It forced us to depend more heavily on God. And somehow between 12:14 and the funeral, and then putting Freddie back on the bus and sending him to school, in each of those moments, I haven't had to worry about what to do. And so many days when I am just sad and I just miss Catherine, the sun comes through the kitchen and warms me like you would think that I had the heat on full blast. Just God reaching in and saying, I'm here. He knows my disappointment and my heartache, and that's okay because God's bigger than that. We had written her obituary and had said, in lieu of flowers, please donate to the Animal Center of Newtown. Within 2 or 3 weeks, they had received over $100,000 in donations in Catherine's honor. They had shared that they would like to build a sanctuary. And as they described their vision, I saw Catherine, I felt Catherine, I knew in my heart that this was the road that we needed to take. Every decision that we've made, from design to programming, she's at the heart of it all. And in so many ways, in so many moments, I feel like it's that place where heaven and earth connect, and I can be with Catherine, and oh my gosh, what a gift. And to think that God would say, okay, this is where I need you to be. That he would entrust all of the people that he's brought into the fold with such an awesome responsibility that at the end of the day is reflective of our baby girl. Oh my gosh, what an honor. I have come to an understanding that she was never mine. She's God's. He's brought her home. We're here because we still have work to be done. He has a purpose for us. He has a purpose for Freddie. Freddie's journey's not done. Catherine's was. I can't be angry about that. Do I want more time with her? Yes, absolutely, positively. What I wouldn't give for one more day. But I don't want to take heaven away from her. I don't. We rest in hope, knowing that there will be a day when we'll see her again.
What do you have if you don't have faith? You can get very disheartened, you can get very discouraged, you can give up, you can feel like, why bother? We all have to reckon with that because we don't know at any moment what can happen. And I think we have to be able to find some peace within ourselves. And I don't know a better place to find peace than prayer.
When Catherine died, I felt like I was a faithful person. I wasn't even scratching the surface. There was a time when prayer was reserved for when the house was clean. I had a few minutes and it was quiet and it was the setting that God would want. Like, okay, here I am and my house looks perfect and I'm dressed and aren't you happy with me? Where now it's a constant dialogue. It's open my eyes to see you, open my ears to hear you, and give me the courage, dear God, to do what I'm supposed to do today.
We were asked to carry a huge cross. And what are we going to show the world? Are we going to fall on our knees in weakness? Or are we going to be like Christ and get up again? It's still hard to drive down that road. It's still hard. But the lessons and the stories and the incredible gifts that these little children at 6 and 7 left the world, you realize you have to go on.
The days where I'm like, oh, this is too much. I think of her leaning over the counter, determined that she was going to write her name perfectly. I only hope that we walk with such grace and poise and leave the legacy that she has left us.
Here we are 6 years later, what a moving tribute to a life lost, and life lost senselessly. You can't make any sense out of these tragedies. But evil never makes any sense. It's never rational. It never has a purpose other than destruction. These days, we tend to count school shootings by the number of dead, and that is a really sad indictment of our culture. But it's gone beyond our schools. It's gone into our churches. And just this week, it's gone into our synagogues. So what do we do as a people? Well, we keep going on. We keep trying to fix this world. And we keep standing up to evil. Well, coming up as a New Age blogger, he had hundreds of thousands of followers.
I believe God was rewarding me with helping wake people up into a higher state of consciousness. It gave me a sense of power, a sense of purpose, and a sense of meaning and value, perhaps.
So why did he suddenly shut down his lucrative website? You'll find out right after this. At the age of 22, Steve ran the second largest New Age website in the world. His mission was to reach a higher state of consciousness and to enlighten his mass of followers on social media. His website also generated tens of thousands of dollars in ad sales each month and provided Steve with a lavish lifestyle. Until suddenly one day, he abandoned it all.
I believed that I was God and that we could all become Christ too, if only we realized this inherent connection we have to God.
At 19 years old, New Age blogger Steve Bancars was a spiritual guru to hundreds of thousands of followers. For Steve, it had spiritual and financial benefits.
I was getting 200,000 to 300,000 views on it a day, and the income to me was an affirmation from God. I believe God was rewarding me with helping wake people up into a higher state of consciousness. It gave me a sense of power, a sense of purpose, and a sense of meaning and value, perhaps.
Steve grew up in a Christian home, but as a teenager, developed a fascination for aliens, the paranormal, and psychic phenomenon. That led him to question his parents' Christian beliefs and eventually led to a full-blown obsession with New Age theology.
The first thing that really got me doubting the biblical worldview was ufology. All of these UFO sightings, evidence from the ancient world that we might have been visited, and there was enough evidence to make me consider that maybe the universe is filled with intelligent biological life that was perhaps naturally evolved. If you piece together the alleged evidence for reincarnation and the alleged evidence for ancient astronaut theory, you get New Age theology.
Jesus remained part of Steve's worldview.
I didn't really reject him, but I didn't accept him for who he truly was. I created an idol out of Jesus to suit my own preferences, to suit myself, and to suit my sin. This Jesus was politically correct. He was a universalist. I wanted to be my own guide, and I didn't want to have to play by somebody else's rules.
As Steve began blogging about New Age practices and supernatural phenomena, he came to enjoy his prominence and the money and vices that came with it. But it was never enough.
I was a lust addict for 10 years or so. I was a really broken person. I didn't realize how broken that I truly was, but I was depraved. I was miserable. I had depression and anxiety that I was suppressing. I had all of this quote-unquote spiritual knowledge, all of this information, and it wasn't bearing any real fruit in my life. I felt like something was missing. I felt a little bit dead inside.
Steve had a disturbing dream.
When I opened my eyes, I was hovering 4 feet over my bed and realized that I was out of my body, and I started having a panic attack, and a being appeared in front of me, and this being had red skin with black markings on his face. It just scared me, because I realized that I wasn't in control, that this stuff is more powerful than I was, that these forces were real, and that they didn't care for my well-being. They didn't need my permission. I was in their playground.
Shaken by the experience, he began investigating the claims of the Bible and Jesus more closely.
I would sleep with the Bible under my pillow because I knew there was something there that was authoritative, that was true, and that was secure. and that had power over anything that I was scared of.
In his search for answers, Steve was drawn to stories in books and online of people who had encounters with Christ.
I would watch another near-death experience where someone would go to hell. Jesus would rescue them out of hell, and they'd come back, and the fruit of their lives, they would be totally transformed, and I'd feel moved and touched. And I'd think to myself, okay, there's something real to Jesus, the Jesus of the Bible.
Steve finally accepted one of his mother's many invitations to go with her to church. At the end of the service, he prayed and asked Jesus into his life, but it was more of a mental exercise than an act of faith.
I just decided in my head, intellectually, that I was going to soften up to him. But I still held all the same New Age beliefs. I still believed in everything that I believed in my sin life. I wanted a little bit more of him, but I guess I still didn't want all of him.
After a few days, Steve realized he couldn't ignore the truth any longer.
I reached a point in my life where the brokenness was weighing on me so much that I needed to stop playing games with my life. I needed to stop playing games with God and stop playing games with Jesus. And I just decided to go outside and to just fall on my face before Jesus and just weep. I was just weeping like a baby. I was submitting, I was repenting, I was tired, I was sorry, I was broken, and I couldn't do this alone anymore. And I was crying out for him. I wanted him.
In that moment, Steve had an experience with Christ of his own.
I could feel that he was Lord over me, and he was Lord over all creation. I could feel that he was concerned for me, but I could feel that he was king. I knew that he was king over creation, that the whole universe was under his feet, and the wind was just totally infused with his presence. And the thing that stuck out for me, that made me realize that I was dealing with God, was how the wind and the trees, the sounds outside, the birds, the crickets, they sounded like they were glorifying him. Like he was there with me, and they were acknowledging that somehow. Like, creation recognized him.
Steve burned all of his New Age books and made a public statement to his online followers.
I told people within a few days of that experience, I'm sorry for misleading all of you astray. This stuff is not of God. They're tools of demons to deceive us and lead us away from Jesus. And Jesus is the Son of God, and he's exactly who he claimed to be.
Steve endured waves of ridicule and personal attacks from the online community, but that hasn't stopped him from trying to teach those who persecuted him. His website, reasonsforjesus.com, provides evidence and sound reasoning that prove the claims of the Bible and the only path to truth, forgiveness, and joy in life come through Jesus Christ.
He delivered me from the stronghold of New Ageism and of occult philosophy. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. I feel more whole than I've ever been in my life. If there's hope for me, there's hope for anybody. I was the most lost person that I knew, and the Lord drew me to himself and had mercy on me. We come to the Lord, he forgives us, he gives us his Spirit, and he wants to help us heal and restore us and walk us through these traumas and these pains. And he wants to accept us and welcome us as a son into relationship with him, not into dry religious rule-keeping, but into a supernatural, intimate relationship with Jesus Christ and his presence.
A relationship as a son, a relationship as a child of God. That is a great revelation. And Steve had many revelations to realize that all creation is aware of him. All creation, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. That is a revelation. You can have that. You can have experiences similar to that, if not identical to that. Why? Because God wants to show up for you. And he promises that he will. He promises that if you seek me with all of your heart, then you will find me. That's what Steve did. He put aside everything else he had been doing and said, God, I need you. I need to find you, and I need to find you now. Here's the prayer for you. If you want to pray it, don't do this casually. Casually doesn't work. When you do it with all of your heart, that's when it works. Jesus, if you're there, if you're real, if you really are my Savior, if you really can rescue me, save me, would you show up for me? Could you come to me? And if you pray that with all of your heart, He'll show up. He'll answer that prayer. A broken and contrite spirit He will not despise. If you want help with this prayer, we're here for you. All you have to do is call us, 1-800-700-7000. Just say, I want to have Jesus in my life today. It will be our honor to pray with you. Here's a word from Job. In whose hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of all mankind.